In an era where so much information is available online, it's easy to find yourself saying, I can do it. You don't need to. But that's one of the first things you should never say to a buyer's agent. In fact, after 17 years in the business, gotten a little tired of hearing all these stories about bad buyer's agents. It's possible I might make some agents a little mad with this video, but honestly, no matter where you're located, if you're a buyer and you want to get the most out of your agent, here are 5 things you should never say to them and several things you should always say before you hire them. Like I said earlier, one of the first things you should never say to your buyer's agent is, I can do it, you don't need to. Now, sometimes this will show up in the new construction realm. Like you might tell them, I already know my area. I know what new construction is out there. Well, here's what you need to remember, okay? Dallas is overflowing with new construction. In fact, Smart Asset recently published a report called Where the Most New Construction Homes Are Being Added, 2024 study. And in it, they reported Dallas sold the second highest number of new construction homes nationwide. So if you're thinking that you can comb through every newly built home in the second most new construction producing city in the entire country, might be time to think again. I mean, chances are you've probably missed something, especially since there is no one-stop search location for new construction. All right, now listen up. The majority of new construction listings are actually not on the MLS, and websites like New Home Source, they can only do so much at keeping up with the thousands of new homes being added all the time. So if you want new construction, make sure you have help with your search. Your agent should be your second set of eyes watching out for that perfect new home. And don't forget that the actual finding of the home isn't the only difficult part when it comes to new construction. Like say you found a couple of different homes that could work for you and you're trying to find out which is the better deal. Well, the sales consultant throws out what sounds like a showstopper, but says you have to sign that night by 7 p.m. in order to get the special pricing, and you don't think you have time to do a contract review, much less get in touch with the other builder to see what they can offer you. All right, there's your time. You need a buyer's agent if for no other reason than to cut through the hype. Or how about reviewing the loan estimate or closing disclosure? I mean, don't tell your agent the lender went over it all with us and it all made sense. All right, just because it made sense doesn't mean it's actually correct. So insist that your agent review it with you as well. See, the lender doesn't have any fiduciary duty to you. In fact, with new construction, the lender you'll often find yourself working with is entirely owned by the builder's company, or at least has close ties with them. So here's what I'm really saying. If you're a buyer and your agent provides a service, let them do it. In fact, even if it's just a service that your agent should provide, you should insist that they do it. Here's another great example of a time when a buyer's agent's services can be vital. Like you found a home and totally fallen in love with it. It's in your budget. This is awesome. And you find yourself saying, I don't care what it's worth that price to me. Okay, that is another thing you should never say, all right? I mean, maybe you've been looking for a long time and you haven't found anything until now and you're scared to miss out on this one. Many times these situations have to do with scarcity. You've been looking for a home with a huge backyard and mature trees in your budget. I mean, that can be a hard one to come by. Or you've been checking out new construction communities and a sales consultant has made you an offer you think you can't refuse. I mean, it's just too great of a deal. You know, or you haven't been able to find anything in your price range and now you finally have. Here's the thing. Don't be fooled by these sales consultants' good deal or thinking that there's no other home like this one in the entire Metroplex, right? Don't settle on, hey, it's worth that price to me. So here's what you want to do. Insist on a market analysis from your agent. Do not make an emotional decision based on perceived scarcity. You should always understand what the data has to say about how much a home is worth. Not what you think it's worth, not what your agent's opinion is or the seller's opinion, but the actual hard facts based on data. And if your agent is really looking out for you, they won't accept that statement from you without first providing you with data on what the home is actually worth. Here's the next thing you should never do with your agent: calling them at noon and saying, I have to get under contract today. Now, believe me, I know how pushy sales consultants can be. I mean, they are really good at putting on the pressure, but an emotional decision driven out of urgency is never a good idea. Remember that if you have hired a good agent, okay, they've got a lot of experience in playing these games with sales consultants, and many times a perceived deadline ends up not being a deadline at all. This is something to keep in mind. Negotiating is hard all in one day, and you likely won't get the best deal with this kind of timeline. Sometimes an agent is busy doing showings all day, or the sales consultant has back-to-back appointments all day, and negotiations can barely even take place. All right, so what's your solution here? Well, give your agent adequate notice. If you're planning on viewing a community without them, let them know. Communicate with them everything the sales consultant is saying to you, and then let the agent take over communication with the consultant for you. Moving on, don't ever say it's new construction, I don't need an inspection. Or I'll just get an inspection at the 11-month mark. All right, for an absentee agent, you've just made their job a lot easier. But here's the thing, you should always get an inspection no matter what. I mean, there are always things home builders miss, and you want to catch them as soon as possible. If you're building a new build, your agent should be assisting you with scheduling multiple inspections throughout the entire build process. If you're buying an inventory home, you should get an inspection with enough time prior to closing to discuss any needed repairs, just like you would with a pre-owned home. Now, here's a big one if you've been on YouTube and you love an agent's content. All right, like let's just say you've really connected with that person's style. Okay, and I will say this, you're probably wondering why in the world I would bring this one up, but it is true. All right, you never ever want to say, I am a huge fan and I want to use you no matter what. Now, this often happens with YouTube because you feel like you already know that person. I want to give you a peek behind the curtain for just a minute. If it is a neighborhood tour or model home tour that you've fallen in love with, that person could be hiring a videographer, right? But in actuality, they don't know much about real estate themselves. It could also be that they're really good at knowing location, but they don't have any real experience with the buying process. I mean, they could even just be reading like from a good script, or maybe it's content you like instead of the visual home tours. Well, maybe they just have a really good script writer and they're good at reading from a teleprompter. Remember that an agent's personality on screen is not telling to what kind of job they will do at representing you. Now, here's something you need to be thinking, okay? You ready? Will I actually work with this YouTuber? And I want to really think this through with you for a minute. I mean, if they are a one-man show and they are really good at making videos, how much time do you think that leaves them to take care of you as a client? Now, on the flip side, what if you're the head of a team and once you commit to working with them, you'll never actually work with that person again? All right, you'll be sent off to someone else and who knows what their level of experience is. So what is the actual best case scenario here? Like, what should you expect of your YouTubing agent? Well, I personally think the best case scenario is a YouTuber who will stay involved in the transaction, but has plenty of supportive staff as well. All right, that's how we do it here. All right, we have an administrative assistant, a new construction professional, and multiple agents. And combined, we all communicate through a group text with you. I oversee the transaction personally, and you'll still continue to hear from me. I'm still fully engaged, but I also have time to research and create videos that doesn't steal from the support you receive as our client. Now, this is the solution that we found, but it's not necessarily the only one that can work well. I mean, the main point here is if you're committing right off to the YouTuber, you need to dig a little deeper to find out what's actually going on behind the scenes. All right, are they actually capable of providing you the kind of support and service that they should? This doesn't only apply to agents on YouTube either. I mean, it could be agents you found from word of mouth, like maybe someone you know just bought a house and tells you that so-and-so was great to work with. Many times there is an emotional high after closing that masks things an agent should have done. Like many times a home buyer doesn't know what they should expect, right? They don't know the bar. And when they say it was a good experience, by what standard was it a good experience? Like their transaction could have been like smooth and super easy, but can that agent handle a potentially more difficult transaction? Okay, so what's the solution here? Well, an initial interview is a must, okay? Make them prove themselves. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the NAR settlement and all the changes that brought about, have kind of forced you into this commitment level. So what you want to do is make it an event. Have a specific appointment, have an interview. Okay, could be in person, could be Google Meet, or a Zoom call. The idea is to have a specific time set aside to create a bar of what you can expect working with that particular agent and with that brokerage as a whole. This has always been the norm for listing appointments, right? Listing your home for sale. But a lot of times with buyer's agents, it's just been about you call about a house, you meet that agent at the house, the agent shows you the house, and then you go from there, right? On the YouTube scene, it's more like, you're watching a model home tour. They don't tell you the address on the video. So you call the agent to find out what that address is, and then you meet them there to view the home. Now, that setup is not enough in today's day and age, and honestly, it's never been enough. So what all should be in this interview? Well, first you need to verify trust. All right, can this person be trusted? There are some specific questions you can ask right off the bat that'll make it pretty clear whether the agent is working for themselves or truly after your best interests. Here are some great questions to ask to build trust with an agent. All right, here you go. Ready? Is now a good time to buy? All right, so watch out for the "it's always a good time to buy" answer, right? Instead, a good thing to hear would be like, well, tell me a little bit more about your situation. Let's brainstorm if it's a good time to buy for you. Or, well, let's talk about seasonal price drops. What you're looking for here is whose interests are they after, because their job is to be team you. During this conversation, there should not be any convincing you, right, of that home values are going through the roof and they're only going to go up from here. All right, so ask yourself, do you feel pressured? An agent should never pressure you. Or how about this? Is their answer an opinion or data-based? Do they have an answer at all? All right, so once you've worked through trust, next you want to verify experience. How experienced is this agent? How long have they been a realtor? Have they been working full or part-time during that time? How do they keep updated with market conditions? All right, there are many more questions that can be asked here to verify their level of experience and knowledge. Next up, and this one is really, really important, verify their services. What services will they provide? Now, this part should be a lengthy and organized discussion. So, start off by asking them, how will you help me find a home? Right? They should offer things like an automated MLS search, organized new construction research, information on assumable loans, prompt scheduling of showings, attending showings, and discussing any home condition concerns with you. You also want to ask them, how will you help me negotiate? Starting with, you should always know what the house is actually worth. All right, that one, so important. An agent should always send you a comparative market analysis. All right, they can also evaluate the hype, price shuffling, and incentives the builder's offering. For example, and this one's a biggie, all right, are price reductions actually price reductions? They should request builder incentives for new construction homes and evaluate the competitive landscape. All right, things like the builder's exposure and market conditions. They should create a negotiating strategy based on the seller's exposure and then negotiate, like really, we're talking assertively, strategically on you, the buyer's behalf. So, and don't just take them at their word either. All right, a good thing to do is ask them, can they show you the results of homes they've negotiated in the past? Next, how will they help you from contract to closing? Will they review the contract with you? A good agent should offer a detailed contract review before you're ready to sign. All right, another question. Will they use a transaction coordinator to cover all of the details of the transaction? And if you're not familiar with what that is, okay, a transaction coordinator monitors the entire transaction. Everything from meetings, documentation, steps. Referring back to what I said earlier, all right, a one-man show is not what you want here. All right, you want someone with adequate administrative support. All right, here are some examples of other services that you should ask about. Will they help you keep track of deadlines? Will they review the loan estimate with you? Will they attend all meetings and inspections with you? Will they do a final review of the closing disclosure with you? Right? Will they attend closing? Now, at some point in the interview process, you'll want to discuss fees with the agent. Like by now, you should be aware that beginning in August 17th, buyers who decide to hire an agent need to sign an agreement with them. The era of meeting a buyer's agent at a house without any level of commitment, that's a thing of the past. Now, agents and their buyers, now they have to commit. And it could just be for one showing, right? But there has to be some level of commitment. So have a discussion about fees. Right? This is an area that, again, you're going to be able to see an agent's experience. If they tell you, from now on, you have to pay your own commission and the seller will pay the seller's commission, then they're not understanding the distinction between the NAR settlement and the DOJ's statement. Now, just like everywhere else, the NAR conditions have become mandatory. But here in Texas, the DOJ opinions, right, their statement, they haven't. It's still perfectly acceptable and encouraged for the seller or seller's broker to pay the buyer broker's commission. As a buyer, you do not personally have to pay your agent's commission, but you do have to own the fact, all right, and make the commitment that they will be paid. And that's an important discussion to have. Now, if all this talk about commissions, the NAR settlement, the DOJ, if all of that is foreign to you, you'll definitely want to check out this video where I explain all about it. In the meantime, Wendy out.